Hello, welcome to Wellness Wednesday with a Wild SJ. I thought it would be good on the days that I don't have a guest for Women Crush Wednesday. I figured it would be good to kind of, at least for myself, keep in the routine of streaming twice a week. So I'm trying to do every Wednesday and every Sunday. And boy, as I'm sure you know, y'all, there are not a whole lot of females in this space. So it can be a little difficult to get a guest on my Wednesday shows. So I just want to start off by saying, please, if you know of a woman who I can uplift, who is starting to create content or has been maybe doing things in the background for a long time and could use some recognition, just little things like that. I just want to continue to lift up the women in this community. And since it's becoming a little more difficult with finding hexicans or pulsicans, I also am thinking to kind of expand the search and find women that are just in the crypto space in general doing good things. Obviously, a plus if they also hold hex or pulse. But, it's just something that I want to continue to do and have a really big heart for that. So hello to everyone who is here. I got Tim DMX 512, Valiant Bran, Redbird. I'm sure there's a couple other people watching that may not be in the chat, but thanks y'all for joining me right now. This won't be a very long stream. I just wanted to talk a little bit about my personal experience, my wellness journey, and then read a couple different things that I think can be helpful. And I was just chatting back and forth on Twitter with Toby One, and he was like, you don't know how much I needed this, and I was like, well, I do, because that's what I like to do. Is if it's something that I feel like is going to benefit me and it can also benefit others, like Richard says, make it scalable. So this is just a little way for me to continue with my routine on Wednesdays and also just incorporate that wellness piece that we are really going to, not that we don't need it now, because everyone does, but I just have this feeling when the wealth comes, it's going to be really difficult for a lot of people to handle, and they may not know what to do with themselves or what to do with this money. So and of course I will also be doing SciVive Sundays still, so I don't want to get too far into what Richard says about it. I think we're going to discuss that actually this Sunday. I want to go deeper into what he says. Actually, this is in Fix the World. He talks very extensively about people who've become millionaires and how that has affected them in all the different ways, like all their ruin and things like that. So that's something that I want to bring up this Sunday. But the reason that we're here today is to talk about wellness. Oh, y'all, it is not easy to get into a wellness. For me, first of all, routines, period, difficult. Like that's just one of the hardest things I find in life is creating and keeping to a routine. And how, not ironic, but it's just so silly that, words. It's interesting to me that it's so much easier to fall out of a routine. And maybe that's just me, but you have someone come into town that's visiting and you're doing different things, or maybe something, came up in your life and it just kind of disrupted your pattern, right? And it's disrupted your routine and what you are used to doing. And it's so difficult sometimes to get back into that. Sorry, I got something in my eye. I keep blinking. It's so difficult sometimes to get back into that routine. And I find that for sure over and over again. I'll be real proud of myself. One small win for me was there was a good span of some months, probably about a good 3-month like period of time, where I was doing a facial routine. And so I'd wash my face and then I'd put on this little mask thing and do this little under eye stuff. And for a good solid 3 months, I was every morning and every evening. I would at least, wash my face and try to make that part of my ritual, right? Part of my routine. And then just something happened and I stopped doing it, and I'm starting to get back into it again. So slow and steady progress. So this is me coming back to my wellness and my routine. One thing that I think helps me a lot and that I want to share with others is to try to do something for yourself first thing in the morning. it can set the entire tone of your day. You know, maybe you had some nightmares, maybe the day before is pressing on you still. I just want to encourage people to, firstly, the first and easiest thing, and I've said this before and I will say it over and over again, when you open your eyes in the morning, smile. Even if it's a forced smile, even if you have to make yourself do it, because that triggers your emotional reaction. It triggers that happy, the serotonin, and it gets your brain thinking, oh, I'm awake and I'm alive and I'm going to look forward to this day. So that's just something very small that I've tried to make a habit. And I've stuck with that for years now. Actually, that's something that I've been doing. And the second thing that I want to encourage is some form of either physical activity or mental activity that's for you, that's for yourself. And because I know people have differing opinions on meditation, yoga, working out, all those sorts of things. But if you can take that time for yourself and ensure that you're putting yourself first in the morning. It took me so long to realize how important that is, to not feel like it's a selfish act, right? Like, oh, I got to take care of me first. No, 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 no. But it's true, because you cannot take care of others when you're not taken care of. You have so much diminished ability to be there for other people or to just show up with your fullness. If you're, and this is something a shaman friend of mine who we did some work together, and she mentioned this great phrase. It's basically, you can't, and I'm sure this comes up in other conversations and people have said this, but you need to give from the overflow. Instead of you have your cup full and you're just like taking from the full cup and giving, let it overflow. And then that overflow, that's what goes to other people. If you're just giving from your cup, it will become empty. And then you're depleted, and then you're like, bleh. At least that's how it works for me, right? So those are just two things. And I share that because that's what I did this morning. So I woke up, I smiled, and actually in between smiling and getting to my yoga mat, there was some kerfuffling and, just issues with roommates and things like that. And I finally, I was just like, okay, I'm not going to let this deter me. I'm not going to, I just kept on with that mentality that I needed to go make sure that I was taken care of. I have actually added a link in the description to the yoga practice that I did this morning. If that's something you're interested in, even if it's something you've never done before, it to me, it's just, I don't know, there's something about it. And of course, again, differing opinions on yoga, right? It can be a practice. To me, I feel like it's more, unless it's a spirit, unless I'm getting very spiritual with it, it's just like a stretch, like mindfully stretching is maybe a good way to put it, is that I'm there, I'm being mindful, I'm feeling my body, I'm feeling, does this side feel different than this side? It just really helps me get more in tune with my body and understand what it is maybe that I need, or are there parts of my body that I haven't noticed need more stretching or more movement. So you can find the link in the description. I really highly recommend Yoga with Adriene. I've watched her stuff for years, pardon me. And she explains it very easily. There's a lot of really great beginner material. So if you've never tried it before, definitely check her out. But yeah, if having a yoga practice is part of your routine already, this was a nice that's just 15 minutes. 15 minutes. It's all, like try. People are like, no, I need to work out for an hour, or like I need to meditate for 30 minutes, or start where you are. If you've never meditated before, and I don't know, again, differing opinions on meditation and how all that works, but being mindful, having a mindfulness practice, right? It's, if you, the point I was getting to is, if you've never done it before, start with 30 seconds. Can you, for 30 seconds, just breathe and focus on your breath? And someday I may get to the point where I lead a little meditation or something like that, but I'm not that confident yet. But it is something that I have practiced on and off over the years, and did a little bit this morning. I actually did a guided couples meditation for the first time, which was really, really cool. I'll try to, I didn't link that, but I'll link that as well so that anyone who is interested in that, it was a really intimate, like very beautiful meditation. Just again, it was like a 14-minute thing. So yeah, all that to say, it really does do something, at least in my experience, to propel my day forward and to go ahead and move forward with that positive movement. So I'm just gonna chime back in here. Redbird, good to see you. RSM, Spike, Red Squirrel. We got a red squirrel and a red bird hanging out. Pulse Hex, thank you so much for joining me. And yes, absolutely, guided meditations. That's what I do, because I every now and then maybe I'll do something that's not guided, and I'll just try and sit there and like clear my mind and just, you know, sit with myself. But I have found over the years that because it's not a practice that I do every day yet, guided practices or guided meditations are super helpful for that. And then yes, same thing here, Redbird. Put the oxygen mask on yourself before assisting others. So that's again kind of what I'm saying about giving from the overflow. Super important. What's up, DMT? Welcome. All right. So with all that being said, I'm going to read 3 different things. One thing from SciVive, one thing from this article, it's wellbeing.gmu.edu, and then one thing from a Time magazine article. So these are all just little things that I thought, why not, share about this. Let's see. Here we go. So first I'm going to read from SciVive. This is a section in Mind. So the chapter is Mind. And then the subheading for this is The Lens of SciVivalism. And it says focus on the positive. And this has been something I learned a similar ideal, or like, a similar teaching, I guess. I've heard, so I've heard this before in a different way, and hearing Richard speak about it was just like, oh yes, that is a really great thing to do. So this is just a few paragraphs. Okay. Lens of SciVivalism, focus on the positive. Switch to my reading voice. Don't focus on the negativity. What you look at affects how you feel. If you grew up around people that are negative, and what you learn is negative behaviors, then you end up being negative yourself with a higher likelihood. If you focus on only the negative aspects of the world, that will rub off on you to some degree, and you will feel it constantly and disperse it further. At any given moment, there's an infinite amount of good and bad things going on, and the feelings that you will feel and your perception of the world will be what you focus on. A good shortcut for understanding that is by imagining yourself as a crystal. And I love this analogy that he does. Let me get some water real quick. This is really beautiful. And I don't know if y'all have seen, there's a meme that someone did recently. I think Richard reposted it, but it's the diamond, like his diamond, and it's got the Pink Floyd where the light is going through and then refracted into the rainbow. I think of that when I read this. So let's say a good shortcut for understanding that is by imagining yourself as a crystal, either a cool looking shard of crystal or a crystal figurine, that your eyes would accept the light of what you looked at. If you tuned into and looked at a pretty light that was beautiful, say a white light or a blue light, that's what you would radiate. That's what you would feel when other people look at you. They would see this light that you are focusing on. If there was some other negative thing going on in the world, and that is what you focused on, then that is what you would feel. And you wouldn't just feel it, you would also retransmit it, radiate it, and become that color. Therefore, you become what you focus on, and you become good at what you do. You appear to others to be what it is that you focus on and what it is that you do. Thus, the analogy of the energy of what you look at changing your body is really well transmitted by the light and crystal analogy. Additionally, when you think about the way that a prism divides white light, just like we were talking about, white light into separate colors and wavelengths, and that if you were to recombine those colors and wavelengths once again, you would get white light on the other side. That's balanced. As soon as you remove one of those wavelengths, you no longer are able to recreate white light again because you're missing one of the components you need. And then this is just the last section that I'm going to read that I love this so much. Positive phrasing. The lesson here could be, don't focus on problems. Instead, rephrase in a positive light. If you focus on problems, you only get more problems. Positive rephrasing is important. Focus on what you don't want only for a short time. Which do you think is the shorter path to fitness? Understanding losing or understanding winning? Positive phrasing is super important. If you want to be fit, focus on fitness. You're going to hear this theme a lot. Focus on what you don't want, literally only as long as it takes you to invert it and create the positive understanding and language of what you do want. Maybe someone tells you to not imagine a giant neon pink elephant right now drinking some chocolate milk. Did you not imagine it? If you think about being fat, you'll actually think about being fat and eating fattening foods. If you take the time to invert it and you think about being fit, you've made your life so very much easier simply by changing the suggestive posturing of that thought. This new stance will affect your decision. This new stance will affect your decision-making process subconsciously, and a percentage of the work needed to become fit has already been done for you. You know, and you're like, oh, I didn't put in any work, but that's the thing. That motivation, that's the first step. You're taking that step by just thinking of the fitness instead of the opposite. So that's a little bit from SciVive that I wanted to share. Hello, Maddie Crypto. Welcome. Thanks for checking it out. Oh, hello, 15 viewers. Oh, God. Let me drink a little more water. It's been a minute since I streamed, so my voice is like crackly. That's all right. I'm so glad to be here with y'all talking about wellness. Let's see. I'm going to read. Let me start here. This is okay. So this is a subject that is really close to my heart, I guess you could say, myself, because for the last like 6 or 7 years, I have had a condition where I am unable to be out in the direct sun for more than, I don't know, 20 minutes. I believe that it started after I had a heat stroke while I was working out on the farms out here in Texas. So what I was used to was 80 to 90 degree heat. I'd be wearing long sleeves and Wranglers, you know, and because you want to protect yourself while you're out there on the farm. But I'd still be, you know, cool enough and picking the tomatoes or doing whatever it is we were doing. But one day I guess I did not take care of myself well enough, and I had a what I realize now is a heat stroke. At the time I was just like, oh, I just fainted, and you know, it's like, I'm fine, everything's great. But turns out no, not fine, everything is not great. And it's been a struggle. It's been really disheartening because I love the sun. I love being out in the sun, getting tanned, in the water, you know, all sorts of things. And I feel super fortunate that this last week I had the chance to do that several times during the week and kept myself cool enough. And somehow I figured out what the sweet spot is that I need to be submerged. As long as I'm submerged in water, I can be out in the sun. And that, look at y'all. I have like, you know, like I haven't seen like this kind of pigment on my skin in, it feels like, years. And I think that I'm not the only one, because I know, you know, with this whole shutdown, you know, and probably not a lot of y'all, but you know, there were a lot of people that just stayed inside for a couple years. Like, what? No, we're not supposed to do that. So yeah, it's been a struggle. It's something that I have gone to doctor, and they don't know. They checked all my levels. They checked my thyroid, like did an extensive panel, and they have no clue. They basically told me about a year ago, I got a bunch of testing done, and they told me at this point to try to talk to a neurologist. I want to try some more Eastern methods first. I was doing a little bit of acupuncture and had some Chinese herbs prescribed to me, but that's been a while. So I will have to do that again and get back into that. Let me see here. Let me say what's up to chat again. Hello, Tank Crypto, CP, Princess Hexonia. I love that. Hello, Princess. Welcome. Crypto military vet. Excellent choice. And Asian. Haley Bieber's mini stroke. Oh, here, let me put this up here. Did I hear about Haley Bieber? No, I don't know who Haley Bieber is, actually. She had to close her hole in her heart. Oh, that's intense, man. And that's the thing is, like, it could be anything. I have no idea. So yeah, you feel my pain. Excellent choice. Like, it's not fun. I met a woman in Puerto Rico when I was living there who she'd had a really terrible heat stroke, and it was the first person I'd ever encountered I was like, oh, you get it. We have the same kind of thing, because we were on this little walking tour and she would have to go into any shade she could find. She had an umbrella with her, which I do that too. I carry a parasol or umbrella with me. I got my sun hat, all that jazz. And she'd have to stop. She'd be like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to like stop and catch up and, do this like anytime that I can. I'm going to need to be in the shade because of my heat stroke. So anyways, long story short, I read this because I know that being out in the sun is wonderful for us. Sunlight just does something to your mind and your body, I believe, chemically, as I'm about to read this part. It's really great for uplifting your mood. In general, being out in nature, I think is a wonderful thing to do. If you're feeling down or you don't know what to do, or you're like kind of going stir crazy, just go for a walk outside. It's just, if you're able to, switch your mind frame. Hello, Trustless. Welcome as well. Glad you're enjoying the audiobook, y'all. So with all that said, let me get to this little part of an article here. I think this is what it's about right here. Okay. There is intriguing evidence finding that people who work at night and don't get exposed to daylight may produce less melatonin, a hormone that is dependent on light. Normally, people produce more melatonin toward the evening. Ooh, I didn't even know that. I'm reading this as I'm reading it to y'all. I saw a few things that I was like, oh, I'll start here. So let's say that again. Normally, people produce more melatonin toward the evening as the body gets ready for sleep. As more light creeps in during the morning, the levels of the hormone start dropping again. In winter months, when the days are shorter, melatonin levels may peak earlier or later in the day, which can lead to some of the mood changes linked to SAD, or I think that was seasonal anxiety disorder. They talked about it. Oh yeah, seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. I actually should have started back up there, but that's okay. Studies in shift workers found that less melatonin may also lead to lower levels of important chemicals the body uses to repair DNA. That could potentially lead to more mutated cells that can trigger cancer. So it's interesting to me, that people try to tell you to not go out in the sun and, always, and yes, you should protect yourself. You don't want to get skin cancer, but you don't want to completely shield yourself from the sun at all times, because there's the cells within your body need that sunlight to, just as the study is saying. It also says some studies also suggest that the light cycle may regulate the production of blood stem cells from the bone marrow. More research here is needed, but that could be important for the timing of bone marrow transplants for cancer patients, and hitting the transplant at just the right time of the light cycle may improve the chances of harvesting enough cells from donors. Like that's really interesting, right? You don't think that sunlight's affecting your body this much, but look at all these different cycles that it affects. Let me go back up and see if there was one more little piece of a paragraph I wanted to read here. So yeah, this is great, especially for us, because most of us are probably indoors right now. Watch if you're watching on the screen. It says, as people spend more time indoors, staring at computer and television screens, scientists are starting to appreciate how exposure to sunlight affects various body systems. The most interesting support for our dependence on daylight emerged with a condition called seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. The term was coined by Dr. Normal Rosenthal at Georgetown University to describe the so-called winter blues, the lethargy and feelings of sadness and hopelessness that come when the weather forces people to spend more time indoors and the season provides little opportunity for exposure to natural light. Some people have speculated that our modern lifestyle, which keeps people indoors under artificial light for so many hours, may be encouraging a form of SAD year-round. So, and that doesn't even touch on what we've gone through this last couple of years with all the lockdowns and things like that. But absolutely, like, there's some just evidence to look into, to keep in mind that it's important to be outside. It's important to get some sunlight. Let's say what's up to a couple other people. Empty Coiner, welcome. Yes, I am trying to put out those good vibes, y'all. It has been just ruthless in the Twitter space recently. And of course, we all talk about that being the bottom signal, right? The bottom is in because the community is fighting amongst one another. And I just want to hope that can be a pattern that we break. And that maybe when we start seeing little glimpses of that we turn to positivity and we turn to SciVive and SciVivalism. And so with that in mind, actually, let me look at this real quick. Yes, this is kind of a little different topic, but I'm going to share this quote from DMT. I believe that you must cut ties with negative or toxic people, even if they are family. Surround yourself with positive and encouraging people that you can learn from. Love and care for yourself first, 100%. And that right there, that's a whole other stream for me. Because I don't know if you heard me mention it before or, you just happened to say that, but I just recently spoke about having to cut off my birth mother from my life. And it's intense, but I have no room for that. Like for someone to diminish who I am or make me feel guilty for things that aren't even real. It's toxic, and it's definitely not worth your time or energy. So, yeah, I would love to go into that more, but for me, that's a whole it's a whole other topic for another day. So the last thing I'm going to read here, and this kind of is me shilling my own stream. I want to talk more about this again. I said that a little earlier, but I do want to speak about sudden wealth syndrome. And I don't know it yet. I haven't experienced that. If anybody who's watching this has gone through it and is interested in speaking about that with me on Sunday, I would love to have you on. Please DM me. I might actually reach out to a couple people, just see if you're interested. But yes, absolutely. I would love to have someone who can talk about what they went through with all of that and how it's changed them, or how they changed their mindset moving forward, so that if that, I'm guessing that there are going to be people, or there are people who have had it happen more than once, right? Like you get this influx of wealth and you don't know what to do with it. And, you have this sudden wealth syndrome happen. Does that get repeated? If you happen to have a windfall and you receive wealth again, do you find yourself in the same space, or have you learned your lesson and you're moving forward with a greater perspective, a greater understanding of how to take care of yourself through this increase in wealth? So with that said, this is the article from wellbeing.gmu.edu, and I'm just going to read maybe a paragraph or so about well-being and wealth and how those play together. So this says, most research on the relationship between financial status and subjective well-being and life satisfaction suggests that the relationship is strong up to the point where a society or an individual is meeting basic needs such as food, shelter, clean water, electricity, and basic health and medical care. After these needs are met, the relationship between wealth and subjective well-being / life satisfaction remains, but additional increases in wealth typically result in smaller increases in subjective well-being and life satisfaction. This is a great example. Being able to finally afford a small luxury like a small television, might bring at least a temporary bump in sorry, I lost my place. Might bring at least a temporary bump in subjective well-being, but buying one for each room is not likely to produce the bump that buying that first one did. The same goes for your second or third car or house. One reason for this is that we quickly get accustomed to new possessions and pleasures, and as a result, start shopping around for a bigger and better possession or pleasure. Psychologists have referred to this tendency as the hedonic treadmill. Hedonic referring to pleasure, and the treadmill metaphor referring to the act of moving and moving or buying and buying while staying in one place. Let me see. Yeah, that was really that was just the one paragraph that I kind of wanted to go into there. And again, just to kind of segue into, I would love for y'all to join me this Sunday to discuss that further. We're going to talk about sudden wealth syndrome. I'm hoping again to have a couple guests on. If anyone's watching, reach out. I'd love it. And let's see. I'm just going to check the chat here. I'm going to share this one too from MT Coiner. Frustrated with the economy and wages. My crypto is sacred to me and my family's future. Feeling pressure to sell it in order to feed the family is very, very stressful to me. And that's a tough choice, right? I mean, that's where, and I feel that, MT Coiner, like I'm like, without like talking too much about my finances and like where I'm at personally, I didn't sacrifice or invest more than was, more than made sense at the time. But I also didn't really set myself up in the best way, because I haven't had to sell anything or do any of that crypto wise, but I've had to dig into other finances that I didn't think I was going to or didn't want to touch. So, feeling that you need to sell in order to provide for your family, that's exactly where, you're just like, okay, like, did I do this right thing here? Am I investing correctly? Yeah. So again, more on that on Sunday. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you are happy and smiling wherever you are. And if you can, with me just right now, I love, and the yoga with Adrian chick that I mentioned earlier, there's this one thing that she did once, and I thought it was the cutest thing. And it was like in the middle of a yoga practice, right? We're doing downward dog, you're doing, whatever. And then all of a sudden I think I was in downward dog, and she goes, now, can you think she's going to say lift your arm or lift your leg? She says, now lift one corner of your mouth. Now lift the other corner. What are you doing? You're smiling. Keep smiling, everyone. Much love, and I'll see you soon.